Welcome to The Leap with Japa, the podcast that bridges continents and connects stories. Join us as we dive into the vibrant world of international education, explore diverse cultures, and share the extraordinary journeys of students far from home. Whether you're dreaming of studying abroad or already embarking on this adventure through other means, Leap with Japa is your companion in navigating the exciting, challenging, and transformative world of global education. Let's leap into today's episode. Welcome to another episode of Leap with Japa, where we dive into the final chapter of our mini-series with Dr. David Adamo. In this episode titled, You Do Not Need a Ph.D. to Succeed in Software Engineering, we explored Dr. Adamo's transformative journey from grappling with the rigors of a PhD to finding his footing and flourishing in the software industry. Dr. Adamo shares invaluable lessons on mentorship, the true cost of a PhD for aspiring software engineers, and the pivotal moments that reshaped his professional trajectory. Whether you're considering a tech career, currently navigating a PhD, or seeking inspiration to overcome professional hurdles, Dr. Adamo's story is a testament to the power of resilience, strategic networking, and the relentless pursuit of excellence. Join us as we uncover the insights that propelled Dr. Adamo to success and his advice for those looking to carve out their path in the tech world. Let's leap into inspiration.
They were looking for like someone to join that team like full time.
Right.
I was like, I haven't graduated yet. And yes, you're right. A lot of my research seems really close to what you all are trying to do at this
talking
point.
about, yeah.
Are you all open to internships?
Okay.
And then the recruiter replies and says, yeah, we'll consider you for an internship.
Okay.
And that's how they're like, okay, yeah, come, let's interview. The company was in Florida. Is still in Florida.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, cool. We set up an interview. Of course, I talked to my advisor. I was like, hey, there's this company. Again. I have to negotiate this thing, right? First, I'm not even making a lot of progress to begin with. So my advisor is probably like,
what is wrong with this guy?
We'll make the best of it, right?
Right.
So I mentioned it, but there's a good thing, right?
Okay.
The project I'm trying to work on is very related to my research.
Your research,
right? And in a sense, it's a matter of some of all this theoretical research. Again, one thing I want to say is the stuff you do in research, you can just take it and put it in practice.
Put it in industry.
In many cases, there are many assumptions in research that just are not quite as clear cut when you put it to actual practice.
Clear cut.
So anyway, so I was like, part of my pitch was, here's an opportunity to actually see how whether any of all this stuff we keep talking about here actually works, right? So I interview. Again, remember, algorithms, I wasn't anywhere near as bad as when I first started. I had improved. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm ready. I go there, do the typical algorithm thing, whiteboard, I write my code.
Whiteboard, yeah.
I have these interviews with these really smart people, other people who had PhDs, by the way.
PhDs.
I remember this one guy, I meet him, he interviews me, and like half of what he's saying, I didn't even have an answer. He asked me to write a proof for something.
A proof?
I don't know how to write proofs.
Mathematical
don't remember how to write proofs. Yeah, but he asked me this question, and I'm like, I literally say, my proof writing is kind of stale, But here is my reasoning for why this thing is
better be upfront and try and fail.
Oh yeah, I believe in being upfront rather than
if you don't know how to do it, just tell them you can't.
Well, long story short, I go back home to Denton at the time, and then they call me and they're like, yeah, we want you to join us for a summer internship. In many cases, here's one other thing, right? When you interview, in some cases, you don't have to know everything,
Yes.
But also be willing to admit if you don't know it, but also
everything.
say what you know,
Yes. Yeah.
Because that might even be part of the what they're looking at, right?
Right.
So, despite I couldn't write the proof, right,
Right.
and some other things, this interviewer asked me, it still brought me on because I
Right.
showed that I know some things.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up with my second internship at this
Oh
company,
wow.
doing
Okay.
something related to my research.
Okay. Okay.
So LinkedIn. So if
Yes.
you're listening out there, and some might ask, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I read your
LinkedIn is
posts
important.
about. Yes. I read your post about the test-driven approach, team dynamics, team synergy, testing, lots of testing. I mean, even before you reached out, I'd read so many things about testing. I was like, I don't like testing, but this guy seems to like it. I'm how does he sleep well at night testing? Just talking about testing. I don't hate testing.
Speaking of
So
sleeping well at night, I know this is a bit of a
yeah,
digression, but
yeah,
and I just like to say this.
yeah.
The reason I test software or push for testing software is so that I can sleep at night.
Okay.
Well, we can
Okay,
talk about it. That's tangential.
that's a
I'll
fair
leave that out there.
that's a fair, because if you don't, then you will not sleep at night. So spend as little time to make sure your code works by testing it, so you don't have to spend a lot of time fixing it eventually.
Exactly.
Because no free lunch. If you
Exactly.
think you're going to skip testing, you're going to pay for it later on, one way or
Yep.
the other, either in
Yep.
terms of dollar revenue lost or time to fix it.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
yeah.
So
those were. So how did you get your full time? So we'll go. So the other question for the rest. So rest of the interview is going to be, we're going to talk about how you got your full time, what you do right now in full time, and that famous last question. No. We're going to talk about. Anyways, let's just talk about your full time. Let's start with that first.
Yeah. So I did mention that this second internship was a defining internship. Two
Yes.
reasons. I met some of the most proficient people I've ever met in my life.
Oh wow.
At this internship. They were very interested in testing too, obviously, and so on and so forth. But
Right.
these are people who they know their stuff. And
Wow.
you just know that they know. It's like, so they challenged me, right? Like, I'm like,
it was a
I gotta
stellar
be like
team.
these people.
It was a stellar team. You picked up a lot more within that period. Okay.
Also, I met one of the most significant mentors I have at this internship.
Oh, okay.
And I know we're talking about how I got my full time.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk more about that.
Long story short.
This is for your internship. If you want to talk more about, this will probably give an insight into the significance of having mentors that can really, really shape. Probably maybe share how you ended up finding this person and how he's helped. I mean, you don't have to mention his name or where it is, but the significance is very, very important for most people to understand why.
Yeah, so this person was part of the project.
Okay.
I was working on. This person has a PhD as well in software testing, right?
It looks like I need to switch to software testing now. I can use you as a
mentor. Looks like me. Same color of skin. So
Nigerian?
No.
Okay.
And one thing, feel free to edit this out because I know this is a touchy subject, but as an immigrant and a black person in the US, there aren't many people who look like us in the
doing great stuff.
Yeah, in the environments we are working in, there aren't many people who look like us.
That's true. I mean, I'm not going to remove this, but that's just what it is. Yeah. And this is supposed to... So the aim of this is supposed to further push people to understand that there are people like us out there doing stuff, and you shouldn't feel that you cannot do this stuff. Yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah. So when you have people like us,
yes,
in many cases they have experiences that you can learn deeply from. And this mentor
Correct.
of mine was in that
Yes.
position. He's dealt with this almost exactly the same challenges. PhD,
Right.
writing papers, working on this project, same research area, so on and so forth.
Right.
So he basically took me under his wing, right? So you
Gotcha.
can just imagine, what if I didn't do this internship? I would never have met this person, never have met these
You never
people
met
who
this
inspired
person.
me.
Yep.
So all of these things, but also be open, right? Be open to
Yes.
mentorship, be open to feedback, and know that you don't know everything. Humility.
That's true.
So anyway,
Yep.
I met this person, and I do my internship. Again, I believe in excellence, doing things to the
Yep.
best of my ability. And they're like, yeah, as an intern, you contributed significantly to this project. You seem to know what you're doing.
Right.
So here, you're going back to your PhD. Again, I
Yes.
hadn't made as much progress as I should, even at this time. It was like year 3.5, like things were looking really bad.
Looking bleak.
This mentor of
Yeah.
mine sat me down and was like, so where are you in this PhD?
Right.
And when I explained to him, he just shook his head and was like, yeah, you got to do something pretty drastic to get out of this PhD program.
Okay.
Basically, he inspired me. And
Right.
when I went back from that internship, I
Yeah.
wasn't the same PhD student. I wasn't the
Okay,
same, right?
So I
So-
think, in as much, sorry to cut you, in as much as this is for the listeners, this is also for me. Because I'm exactly where you were in your third year. My PhD advisor just retired last month. So, but yeah, go ahead. So this is almost as therapeutic for me as well. Yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, to the full-time thing, they were also like, the company, they were like,
okay,
yeah, we think you're worth hiring full-time. So
go
back, complete that PhD and come back.
Oh, wow.
And even more so,
yes,
thanks to the people I worked with, everyone puts in a good word. And this is where the importance of be diligent at what you do, right? Because there's a huge reward you get from people being able to say that you are great to work with and you know what you're doing. Because then they'll put in a good word. Leaders at whatever company or whatever will hear about it, and so on and so forth. And here is the wonderful thing, and this was a blessing, and I don't want to be all religious and whatnot, but I don't think this is all me. It's not all me, right?
Yes.
Eventually, they said, go back, finish your PhD, and we will also pay some of your tuition.
Oh, wow.
I say this, and
you must, for a company that how long were you on an intern for?
It was summer, like 3.5 months or something like that.
For them to, for them to say, go back and would pay, your work must have been spectacular. They wouldn't have, there is not, this is America. They wouldn't have said, we will pay some of your fees and we would give you a full-time job when you complete if what you did was just regular stuff. That's, at least from my own experience in America so far. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I didn't do rubbish. It's
exactly.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Right.
You made them money.
I want to add. I know that all of that pay your tuition, blah blah, didn't just happen out of thin air. There were people involved. And this member, I had this mentor.
Yes.
I know he was very involved. Right?
He was very involved. Yes.
So then I go back. So imagine, first this mentor of mine has talked sense into me.
Yes.
Right? And I'm not ashamed to actually admit this. After that conversation with him, I went into one of these meeting rooms and cried.
Well, yeah. Let's not talk about crying now. I have so many episodes of that. This is not a this is not a time to be what's that word I want to use? Shy. But yeah, it did two things. What you just said in terms of going to a room to cry, it did two things. First of all, it kind of reminded you of who you were.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of made you think that I've thought so lowly of myself all this while. So this is how I am.
Mm-hmm.
So that realization and that pump is more like, it was like a clash of emotions. Like, this is how I used to
Mm-hmm.
be. I became like this. This is how I should be, and I
Mm-hmm.
have someone that has done it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's like putting wind under your wings. Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
fine, let's go get this. Let's finish this.
Yeah. Yeah. And the point I'm trying to make is that, so I have the pep talk
Yes.
in my sales, right? Like wind on
Yep.
the ship.
Yep.
They say you already have a job here.
Yes.
Just go and finish.
Go and
They're
finish.
also paying money.
Hey, your
I was
tuition.
like,
What
I
else?
can go
What
back
else
and
could go
finish
wrong?
this thing.
Yeah.
And here I have this mentor who's rooting for me and probably is going to
Yes.
be disappointed if I don't figure this stuff out.
Yes.
I went back. So that's how I got my first full-time job.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
It's already settled. So here I am. I have a job waiting for me. I just
Waiting
need
for
to
you.
graduate. So I went back to school. I was writing like a crazy person. That was when I came up with this sentence that it is not my job to judge my own work. It's not my
Right.
job to tell myself whether or not my paper
Right.
is worth publishing. That's the peer reviewer's job. So I'm just going to write it. My job is to write it.
Ah.
Writing things, even my advisor, I might say some advisor is like, yeah, I don't know about that. I'm like, okay.
Oh.
1 week later, I sent her a draft.
Yeah.
I was like, I wouldn't necessarily wait for your permission anymore.
Yes. Yes.
Because
Yes.
in the end, the peer reviewer,
Yes.
if they accept it, well, that's a good thing for all of us.
That's a good thing. Yeah. For all of yes.
Doesn't matter
Exactly.
whether we agreed, or something.
Yes. Yes.
I
Yes.
was
Yes.
just churning out stuff, and then I had great lab mates, fellow PhD. There's a
Right.
particular person. Anyway, he inspired me a lot. He was very good at what he
Okay.
did. So I just was a
You
different
just
kid.
kept running.
And long story short, I graduated, went to the job that was waiting for me, to these
Wow.
wonderful people over there. And I was there for 2 years.
Wow.
Right.
Wow. That's a great. So what's your advice, based on all of it, what's your advice for aspiring software engineers? I mean, a lot of people they've heard a lot of things. So for people that want to, be software engineers in the US, what advice would you give them about the kind of education that they need, the skills that they need, and navigating the job market? I know the job market is up and down, in the US, but what is that advice?
If your goal is to be a software engineer,
Yeah.
don't get a PhD.
Oh, we're going into that last question, so we can merge those questions now. Okay, so if your goal is to get into software engineering, you said don't get a PhD.
Yeah.
Explain.
So there's a concept I like from economics, right?
Okay.
And I remember this even way from secondary school: opportunity cost.
Yes.
Or I remember as my economics secondary school teacher put it, or true cost. I don't know if this is
True cost.
This is how it's also, maybe it's a generic economics thing.
You also mentioned the
True
phrase
cost.
when we talked sunken costs.
There's that too, but
Right.
it's the idea that whatever you choose to do,
Right.
you're doing it at the expense of some other thing that you could have done instead.
Right.
I think
correct.
that's a key way to think about getting a PhD. If you're a full-time PhD student, even if you're
Right.
part-time, still stressful, as you very well know.
Yes.
If you're spending time on this PhD,
Right.
that is time that you might have been able to spend to still get a software engineering job,
Yeah.
earn all this money over 5.5
Right.
years, get all these
Right.
promotions. Probably you would have made it to staff or senior at that
Staff.
point.
Yeah.
And then there's also the life opportunity cost. Maybe you could get married, do all these other life things. Because trust me, as a
Right.
PhD student, first of all, you're very likely broke. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
a teaching assistant or whatever. You get enough to survive, but you're not. It's difficult to raise a family on that. It's
Right.
not, and then it's hard work. There's not a lot of time. So
Right.
sometimes a lot of PhD students put a lot of their life on hold to finish that PhD.
Right.
That is
Right.
part of the opportunity cost. Then all the promotions, all the income, all the
Yeah.
experience, the years of experience.
Years of experience. Right.
So that is why. And
Okay.
it comes down to the fact that you don't need a PhD in computer
Yes.
science to be a
Yes.
software engineer at some of the best companies in the world. You don't.
Okay. That's like a hit the nail on the head kind of thing.
Yeah.
Say it, and just like you said, you said something about it is the responsibilities of the peer reviewers to review. I'll say it, I'll own it, and that's it. So that's the
Mhm.
same thing that you just did. If you want to be a software engineer, you don't need a PhD. So the question is, it might be a dumb question, but did you think you should have left the PhD at any point in time? Or was this just a realization after you calculated the costs of how much time and effort you put in?
The thought crossed my mind at least once every week during the
Oh,
PhD.
okay. Man, you're making me
Why am
feel
I even here?
you're making me so much better, because I thought I was losing my mind by saying I'm just going to write this school and I'm just going to tell them, you know what, this is not working, but I'm still going to try. I'm on leave. I have a 1 academic year leave that I've just taken, so I might just tell them, or I have to look for an advisor now. Though I don't have an advisor. But okay, so that's number one. What's the second? What's the second advice you would give? So the first one is, if you want to be a software engineer, don't. What's the second one?
There is some personal value to getting a master's, especially if
Okay.
you're like me, like you coming from Nigeria, because
Right.
it will show you that computer science there is more to computer science.
Yes, there is.
Right? So you get to learn in a different environment, take classes in a different environment, learn some areas that you might not be as familiar with,
Right.
and it's gonna take you about a year or a year and a half or 2 years, depending on what school you go to.
Okay.
There is some value in that. And then it
Okay.
will also give you some level of academic or educational credibility, especially having come from a different country.
Right.
But,
Right.
as I said, you probably want to stop there at the master's. There are caveats. Right?
Yes. Caveat. Yes.
It's also, one of the biggest challenges is it is easier. Well, maybe easier is not the word. It is more likely for you to get funding, tuition assistance, and so on and so forth with a PhD.
PhD. Yeah.
That is the trade-off. That's the difficult trade-off here. There isn't as much funding for master's
For
students.
masters. That's correct.
PhD students are usually prioritized. So you'll have to figure out your situation, right? And can you grind it out for a year and a half while
Right.
figuring out how to survive, and then hopefully go earn some good money
Yep.
as a
Yep.
software engineer? Or do you really, really need that funding? And maybe are you at least interested in some of the
Yeah.
work of a PhD? And you got to think about that. But
Yeah.
master's is useful. So get that
Yeah.
master's if you have the opportunity, especially, if you're coming from the same place as us or an international
Right.
student in general. Yeah.
So what are your future aspirations looking like? What are your professional goals? What do you aim to achieve? You're on this Japa journey. You're still on the path. Well, how do you plan to achieve them? I mean, the ones that you can publicly share. Everyone has dreams and aspirations.
Yeah, there are two sides to this.
Okay.
I believe that as professionals in computing, we have a lot of valuable skill.
Okay.
We don't always realize the value of it. And what I'm trying to say is that if you have the time and the will,
Yeah.
there is a lot you can build yourself independently of an employer.
Right.
That might work out and might turn out to be of very high value. So I'm saying this
Right.
because that's something I think about a lot.
Okay.
What is my value independent of my employer? And how can I continue to leverage that value as much as I can without relying 100% on my employer.
Okay.
So that's a big part of my aspirations, to use my skills independently as much as I can. It's not easy when you have a full-time job.
Oh yeah, it's not. So
Now,
final question. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
There's more. There's more.
Okay.
We've been at this for a while.
Yeah.
But
that's good.
Professional aspirations, because I do have aspirations within the auspices of an employer.
Right.
I want to help other people grow. I am more interested in what I can do to help other people grow than what I can do just by myself.
By yourself.
So we call it individual contributor, right?
Yeah.
There's only so much you can do yourself. Sometimes
yes.
Your impact is amplified through other people.
Yes.
So for that reason, I've been contemplating for some time now whether engineering management, as opposed to being an individual contributor as a software engineer, is the best path for me to go. So in the long term, it's quite likely that's a path I'm going to follow, specifically because I want to be in a coach position as opposed to be a player.
Coaching position to help on others grow their career.
Yeah.
Okay. So finally, what message would you like to leave with our Leap with Japa listeners, especially those who are aspiring to follow a similar path as yours?
Yeah. Don't be angry. I talk a lot, but
that's fine. Oh no! I mean, talk a lot is good.
Messages.
Yeah.
So number one is ask for help.
Okay.
Whenever you need it, don't be shy.
Okay.
It's people that get people places. It's just how life is.
That's true.
And I always remember something my father would always say. He will always say that you can blame him for not getting things, but you will never ever be able to blame him for not asking.
Yes.
Always ask for help.
Always ask for help.
Every chance you get. And then also, growing up, my mother would always say, whatever is funny. I talked to her recently and she says she doesn't remember ever saying this to me. Which is funny. But she would always say when I was much younger, she would say whatever is worth doing well, or whatever is worth doing at all, is worth doing well. So whatever you do, just do your best at it. It's sometimes not worth half-heartedly doing things. Just if you're at an internship, put in everything you can, of course, in a healthy way. If you're at school, if you're doing GRE or TOEFL, trying to get admission, prepare as much as you can, and so on and so forth. Whatever you do your best to do it well, because the reputation you build, the reputation for excellence that you build, is what is the word people will put in for you everywhere you go, right? And there are many instances in my life where it's because someone said something that I got something else.
Yeah.
And then intelligence is a blessing, right?
Right.
But there's a limit to how far it can take you, right?
Gotcha.
So it's usually the ability to withstand and recover quickly from difficulties and disappointment that makes the difference between those who achieve their goals and those who don't. It's not necessarily intelligence, right? And finally, be humble but not passive.
Yes. Be humble but not passive?
Yeah.
Okay. Explain.
I've often talked to a lot of people with a similar background to you and I, and in Nigeria we have this thing where you have to be humble, and like someone says, "Oh, you did a really great job," and you be like, "No, it wasn't me. It's God, or it's."
I understand the
passive
person,
right? You're bouncing off compliments like, I don't know, whatever. Be humble, but not passive. I don't think humility necessarily it doesn't require passivity.
Yeah.
If you are good at something, don't be afraid to say it and prove it.
Yes.
And at the same time, always remember to self-reflect and see if you are not actually as good at something as you think. Remember what I was saying with PhD, whatever.
Yeah.
And work on it. Right.
And work on it. Okay.
So yeah, those are core messages that I have to share.
Well, thank you very much for taking out your time I hope you had fun doing this as much as I did. And we'll speak some more. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. This was fun. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Leap with Japa. I hope it brought you valuable insights and stories that resonate with your journey. If you have any thoughts to share, questions, or want to send a voice note with your feedback, please visit our website at leapwithjapa.io. You will find a contact from there. I would love to hear from you and feature your voice in a future episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform, some of which are Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or Player FM. Your subscriptions and reviews help us grow and reach more listeners, and I truly appreciate each one of them. Also, check out our merch store on leapwithjapa.io website for some cool t-shirts and hoodies. Perfect for showing your support for the show. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll dive even deeper into the experiences and challenges of international education and careers. Until then, keep leaping forward, and thanks again for being part of the Leap with Japa community.